Hello, my name is Alexander Bardakov and I work as field application engineer for infrared thermography for one of a large test and measuring company. Today I want to talk to you about measuring human body temperature with thermal cameras. Why did I decide to make this video? Due to current situation with the global pandemic of coronavirus, I start to receive more and more questions from my colleagues or from our partners, to which I have to give the same answers. Probably this video should arrive a couple of months ago, but the situation was not so dramatic and I did not receive so many questions on which I had to give the same answers. And I believe also that this is not the last outbreak or not the last epidemic which we face, especially if you look back at previous epidemics of swine flu, SARS, bird flu, etc., which luckily for us those times were successfully contained. So I decided to make this video to allow more people to use this information. And here I just want to share my knowledge of technology, and before proceeding I need to make a small disclaimer. This is an information video which contains mostly my own opinion, which is based on almost 20 years of experience with infrared thermal imaging. I just try to share information about what technology can do for you and what it cannot do for you, what are limitations of technology. I don't want to promote any specific product or to specify the product to use for this application. It's more just description of the technology. I also don't want to discuss applicability of specific products for measuring of human body temperature. I just want to share information about how technology works so you could make informed decision. So let's move on. First, is it possible to get reliable measurement of human body temperature with thermal camera? And before moving to other topics, I would say that yes, you can, but I am not a big enthusiast to use this technology for such an application. And in a few next minutes I will try to explain you why. The next, I will try to explain you how to get more or less reliable measurements of human body temperature with thermal camera. Some tips and tricks, basically what you can use on practice. But again, it all has some limitations, so you need to take proper precautions and need to be careful when you use this technology and know its limitation and set proper expectations from what you use and what you get. I will make several demonstrations showing basically how it happens and what influences measurement of human body temperature. And I also will try to explain how to deal with the challenges which you will face when you do this, when you try to do these measurements. And in fact, I will also explain why industrial thermal cameras are probably not the best choice for such an application. So let's start. When you try to measure human body temperature, you would expect a value of 36.6 degrees Celsius. And if your body has a temperature which deviates from this value, you actually will feel sick. And if you have elevated temperature of only 1 degree C, you will feel the fever. And if you have an elevated temperature of 2 degrees C compared to normal, you will have a severe fever. And this is actually the first challenge you will face when you try to use industrial thermal cameras for such an application. Because if you look at accuracy specifications of most of industrial thermal cameras, they usually have accuracy specifications of ±2 degrees C. You may ask why it is so inaccurate, especially when you hear all the time that you can capture a temperature differences of several hundreds of a degree with these devices. But in fact what you hear relates to how the devices deliver you information about temperature difference on some surface, but absolute temperature measurement accuracy still remains within specified ±2 degrees. Let's look how it works. I have a thermal camera here. This is a camera which I know very well. I work with it already for quite a long time, so I know its accuracy, its performance. It's a good camera. I started it in advance, so it heated up and it can deliver proper accurate measurements. First, to make sure that my camera delivers me accurate measurements, I need to check accuracy of this camera. And for this task I will use a small black body calibrator, which I also have here, which is set at a temperature close to human body temperature. Actually, black body is a concept from theoretical physics, and black bodies do not exist in nature. And this concept just describes a body which absorbs all incident radiation regardless of wavelengths of radiation. There is relation that the better a body absorbs radiation, then better it emits thermal radiation. And parameter describing how normal body is different from black body is called emissivity, and it is used to compensate for difference in radiation between normal body and black bodies. So you need to set up correct emissivity when you do measurements with any infrared measurement device. Theoretical concept of black body provides emissivity 1, and all other bodies, they have lower emissivity. So any object which exists in real life, it has lower emissivity than black body, and even calibrators like this, they have slightly lower emissivity than actual black body. This one has emissivity of 0.95, so if I want to compare its readings with camera readings or compare camera readings to its readings, I need to set up this emissivity value on my camera, or need to make sure that I have this value on my camera. So let's do it. So I will just check this number. Actually, I don't need to adjust, so I can make measurements now. So I can go back and we can just do measurements. First, I will focus using laser autofocus of this camera. Then aim, and then get the reading. So as you can see, in the center of black body, a small crosshair shows me where I measure, and you can see the readings on top of the image. So black body is set for 36.6 degrees, the camera shows 36.5 degrees, so it's quite good accuracy. Actually, you do not get these readings every time, but I can trust this camera. And now let's try to measure temperature of my hand. Human body actually has quite high emissivity, so for measurement of skin temperature I need to use emissivity of 0.98. So this is what I will do now. We just set up this emissivity value with the camera. Okay. So I'm ready, and let's try to do the measurement. So I take my hand, I again aim the camera, I try to get some measurements, and let's check what we see. As you see, I have a temperature of 27.8 degrees in the place where I measure, and that's the first surprise. So what's the problem with this measurement? It is too low. It's not even close to 36.6, which I would expect. Am I dead, or is camera showing wrong temperature? In fact, as I am still talking to you, I'm pretty alive, and as we just checked the camera, it has quite a good accuracy. So what's the problem? There is actually no problem with this. This is just temperature of my skin. And infrared technology allows to measure only surface temperatures. As your skin provides your body protection from losing heat, it always will have slightly lower temperature than internal temperature of your body. And you can also see similar when you have your winter clothes. when the clothes provides you enough protection from cold, on the surface of the clothes you will see temperatures very close to ambient. But if your clothes is not good enough protection against cold, then basically the temperatures will be closer to your body temperature. The same applies to the skin. So, okay, my skin is colder, especially on my hands, and actually I have quite cold hands. Probably I can measure on some other parts of the body which can provide me better results. Some sources recommend to use forehead for measuring human body temperature. Let's try to do this. And basically we'll do the same. I just aim the camera, I focus it, and I will try to capture my forehead, and you can see the result. It's better. It's 33.5 degrees, but it is still too low. Is there a way for reliable measurement? Actually, there is. Experienced thermographers use tear ducts, which are located in corners of your eyes, close to nose, because they usually have the temperature which is very close to your internal temperature. There still will be some difference, but it will be not very large. This is so good reference, of course, if you have normal body temperature, that it is used just for checking that your camera provides you reasonable measurement in the field when you do not have other references, like, for example, black body, which I use here. Okay, let's try this approach. And I just cover it, and okay, you can see the camera shows 35.6 degrees in maximum temperature, and cursor from maximum measurement was exactly on my tear duct. In the image which I have, it's actually the point with the highest temperature in current situation, but still it is not perfect. Actually, on my experience, in some situations I have very reliable measurements, but today it looks like it's a bit cold outside, and also in my room it's only 20 degrees, so it looks like my body just adjusts to this surrounding, and I just have slightly lower temperatures on my body, even in the places which I consider as probably better and more reliable for temperature measurement. And that's actually the biggest problem when you try to use infrared thermography or any infrared temperature measurement device for measuring human body temperature. So it's not the problem of the camera itself, it's the problem of your body, which may really have different temperatures on surface. But there is still a question about many videos and images showing infrared thermometers showing exactly 36.6 degrees when measured on your forehead. How is it possible? There are several opportunities actually. You can take an infrared thermometer and you can take a measurement of forehead, and then just expect that your temperature readings will be always lower than 36.6 degrees. And then you can set up some screening threshold, which will be more related to what actual temperature you measure with the thermometer. Or another approach which can be used is that you use thermometer, which scale is adjusted for compensation of this small difference for majority of cases. It doesn't mean that it will give you accurate readings every time, but in some standard situations you probably can get some reasonable readings. But then, as this thermometer has a scale which is actually tweaked just to show you the temperature which you expect, nothing more, then it is not advised to use this thermometer for any other application, because it will show the error which is exactly the displacement of the calibration of the thermometer to show you human body temperature which you expect. But at the same time, it might probably work for screening of people in some situations, but still you should use it with care. Overall, infrared technology, while it provides quite reliable surface temperature measurements, but because of the object which you measure, which creates some challenges, any measurements which you do with infrared device, it just gives you some indication for further measurement. So if you use infrared devices for screening of people, to detect people who have fever. If you suspect that somebody has fever based on measurements provided by your infrared device, check his temperature with normal medical thermometer. Does this mean that infrared technology cannot be used for screening of people or for measurement of human body temperature? No, you can use, but if you provide that you corrected all possible errors and if you have a reference measurement with a medical thermometer. Actually, there is one inexpensive alternative which actually uses also infrared measurement, and this is an in-ear thermometer. In-ear thermometer is actually a different version of medical thermometer, which is designed based on infrared technology, but it uses measurement only in one point in your ear. When you measure temperature in ear, in that place you have much less influence of other factors, and the temperature there will be much closer to internal body temperature. And it is fast enough because measurements take about less than a second. Of course, you can use setup with infrared thermal cameras for mass screening of people, but when you decide to use this, you need to take care about all the factors which can influence what you see with thermal camera, and also need to take into account factors which actually change temperature on surface of human body. And these can be different factors. For example, if somebody was just running, he can have elevated temperature and then you may have false positive. And the opposite, a person with fever having it for prolonged time may be sweating very intensively, and then actually surface temperature because of active evaporation because of sweating can be lower, and you can then detect elevated temperature only by contact measurement. On top of this, experience from previous outbreaks actually indicated that use of infrared technology has very limited efficiency. I can give some examples. There were quite an interesting publications where in Canada, for example, there was analysis made for a number of people which were screened with thermal camera in airports. I think it was yet from 2003. And basically this analysis showed that none of people who was detected with SARS, at the time as far as I remember that was SARS outbreak, none of people detected positive with SARS was detected with thermal camera. And the opposite, people who were detected having elevated temperature with thermal camera, they just have all other reasons but not SARS. And if you look at current pandemic, another challenge which might make this technology challenging to use is that for a few days you might have no symptoms, or many people might be sick but even without symptoms, but they are already contagious. So in this situation, or in these cases, infrared technology does not help you at all. And if you look at all these facts, you can understand that infrared technology using alone cannot contain the spread of disease. You need to use multiple different measures. Actually, after previous outbreaks, there was a number of interesting publications about use of infrared technology for mass human screening. But the challenge with all these publications were that they were mostly based on tests made in laboratory without taking into account a lot of factors which influence on variability of temperature of human body when you have many people having different situation, different background, coming from different ambient conditions. And to be honest, I did not see any good publication based on solid statistics with a field application where positive detections based on thermal camera readings would be mentioned. So if somebody has proper links on some publications, I would really glad to see them in comments, and I will really appreciate if you share them. And at the same time, if you still believe that this technology can give you some benefits and you want just to use something which could help you to have peace of mind, there are some guidelines which appeared actually a few years ago, which actually describe how to use thermal cameras for this application, and what should be parameters of thermal cameras. The first guideline which I would refer is the document which is called ISO/TR 13154. This is actually a technical report which is addressing deployment, implementation and operational guidelines for identifying febrile humans using screening thermography. And in this document you will find recommendations on how to use thermography for screening of people. And another important thing which is also in this document is a list of other documents which specify what are parameters for thermal imaging systems to be used for mass human screening in airports or in stations or in other places where many people go. If you look for some additional information about use of thermal cameras for medical applications, I would advise you to look at a nice book from Nicholas Diakides and Joseph Bronzino. Here it is. Actually, the full name of the book I also will place in description of this video, besides other links and other information which I will put there. And this book actually addresses different applications or different aspects of application of infrared thermal imaging for medical purposes. In this video I could also cover some other aspects of accuracy of thermal camera to describe you actually how you get this ±2 degrees accuracy, but then the video would become too long, because in this case I would have to cover also non-uniformity of image, also long-term stability. Yes, with this setup I can do these tests, and probably in some future videos I will probably also make such small tests just to show how it works and what to expect from technology and what to expect from cameras, what you can face. But in this video I try just to focus on the most essential things, and I hope the message now is clear. And if we come back to industrial thermal cameras, they are still perfect tools, but for the job for which they were created. And I can tell you that they can find their place in research laboratories, even related to medical research, where, for example, a control or monitoring of small temperature variations is more important than absolute accurate temperature measurement with precision of few tenths of degrees. Because potentially you can get camera which can measure temperature with such accuracy, but to achieve such accuracy in real life it's really difficult, even if you get the best camera with the best accuracy. And to get to this accuracy, you often need to take additional measures, which might be quite complex, and they should be worthwhile to get to this accuracy. Thank you for your attention, and good luck and stay healthy.